So welcome, good people. This is KASNEB ATD Level 1, Introduction to Financial Accounting, the 30th August 2021 paper. 30th August 2021 paper. And this session will be interested in question 3. So we go straight to the question. The trial balance of Mamboleo Enterprises. The trial balance of Mamboleo Enterprises as at 31st December 2020 failed to balance. The debit balance was 1,724,300, while the total of credit balance was 1,713,200. A suspense account was opened with the difference. So further investigation revealed the following errors: that computers costing 40,000 had been recorded as a debit entry in the repairs and maintenance account. Computers costing 40,000 had been recorded as a debit entry in the repairs and maintenance account. This is what we call the error of principle. Error of principle, we will correct it. It's an error of principle. Then total purchases in the period were understated by 20,000, although the total value of creditors was correctly recorded. Total purchases in the period was understated by 20,000, although the total value of creditors was correctly recorded. Then bank charges of 400 had been omitted entirely from the ledger. This is an error of omission. Error of omission had been omitted entirely from the ledger. Then total telephone expenses were overstated by 28,000. Overstated by 28,000. Then purchase returns of 1,100 were recorded as a debit entry in the sales returns account, but the correct entry had been made in the trade payables control account. Then rental expenses of 10,980 were entered incorrectly as 11,880 in the expense account, but were entered correctly in the bank account in the ledger. So, okay. Then credit purchases amounting to 5,000 had been omitted from the books of accounts. Again, this is an error of omission. Error of omission. So let's see what is expected of us. Journal entries to correct the above errors, and then suspense account duly balanced. Journal entries to correct the above errors, and the suspense account duly balanced. Okay. Good. So let's go straight to the solution. Let's go straight to the solution. This question, ideally, the way it is, should take you around 15 minutes in an exam paper, so that you can save some more time for other questions that are complex and ambiguous, So let's look at it. The trial balance of Mamboleo Enterprises as at 31st December failed to balance. The debit balance was 17,300, while the total of credit balance was 17,13. A suspense account was opened with the difference. So normally the trial balance, debit side should balance with the credit side, and they are telling us that the debit side had a figure of 1724,300, and then the credit side had 1713,200. So if this is the debit side and this is the credit side, it means that this is the side that has not, has a lesser figure. So a suspense account was opened with the difference. So what we normally do, if this is the trial balance, just an extract, you open a suspense account and you place the difference here so that this can balance with this. So the difference will be basically 24,300 minus 13, 1724.3 minus 1713.2. That gives you 11. Let me just repeat. 1724.3 minus 1713.2. That gives you 11.1. So 11,100. So suspense account will be 11,100. To make this figure, 1724. That's how you 1724,300. Thereby making the trial balance do what? Balance. So that is what they mean by the first statement. So if this was an extract of the trial balance, then this is what we expect it to be like. So at the end of the day, it will balance at 1724,300, but after introduction of a suspense account figure, which is 11,100, to make this 1713,200, to make it 1724,300. But what does this suspense mean? It simply means that there we have errors what this that we are supposed to correct, and that's what we'll be doing in this question, especially part 2 of the question, where they want us to find out what is contained in that suspense figure. By the time we find out what this 11,100 is all about, we'll have balanced our power balance. So let's move together. That is statement number 1. A suspense account was opened with the difference. So that is the suspense account will have the difference of 11,100 on the credit side. We will be using it when we come to the suspense account part 2 of the question. So further investigation revealed the following errors. These are the errors. Journal entries correct above the errors. So how do we come up with the journal entries? Journal entry, you have to come up with this drawing. So come up with the drawing here. Oops, sorry for that. That's our drawing. Try to see if I can get this line clearly. I think I'll just draw using bare hands. Let me try again. It's not easy to draw these lines. Let me just see how it goes. Good. I think we've managed. So that one is good. Then of course we'll have, let's just concentrate on this other side. So we have that. Then we have this. You can have another line there, and then you can have another line here. Then you can do away with this. So this is not necessary. This is not necessary. So let's just tackle these two. So this is the debit. This is the credit side, and these are the particulars. So these are our journal book. So debit, particulars, debit, credit. Forget about this last part. Okay. So then let's do the corrections. Journal entries to correct the above errors. So number 1, computers costing 40,000 had been recorded as a debit entry in the repairs and maintenance account. Now computers are assets and these are expenses. That's why we said it's an error of principle, wrong class. It's in the correct side, that is the debit side, but wrong class. Computers are assets and these repairs and maintenance are expenses. So computers costing 40,000 had been recorded as a debit entry in the repairs and maintenance account. What should happen is this: computers account, repairs and maintenance account. So these are the two accounts. We bought computers worth 40,000. We are supposed to debit computers with this amount of 40,000. But what did we do? Instead of debiting computers with 40,000, we debited repairs and maintenance with 40,000. So what are we supposed to do to correct this error? We credit repairs and maintenance account and then debit the computer account. That way we will have cancelled this effect and then remain with the right entry, which is debit computers account. So we'll simply come here and say computers account, computer account, we debit 40,000 and then we credit the repairs and maintenance account. So we always start with the debit account. So repairs and maintenance account, 40,000 like that. And then in our explanation, we simply say this is the narrative. Narrative will be correction of error of principle. So anybody will understand what you've just done. Correction of error of principle, and then you underline this same. This will show that you have duly closed this book. So you underline once you get there, you underline that. Sorry, my line is not that good, but at least we are somewhere. So computer account, you debit computer account, credit repairs and maintenance account with 40,000. Then the narrative is correction of error of principal. Then we go to, we are done with number 1. Number 2, total purchases in the period were understated by 20,000. Total purchases in the period were understated by 20,000, although the total value of creditors was correctly recorded. So total value of creditors was correctly recorded. Total purchases in the period understated by 20,000. So this is an entry that affects only one side of the trial balance. The other side is okay. The credit side is okay. It's the debit side that was understated by 20,000, and to be specific, the purchases account. This possibly will explain why the trial balance didn't balance, because it only affected one side of the trial balance, which is the debit side. It was understated. The credit side was okay. So what do? We come here, we say we are supposed to, this is purchases which has been understated, and purchases is a debit account, so it means the debit side had been understated. So we simply come here and say we debit the purchases account with the understatement so that it can come back to normal. Purchases account, how much? 20,000. And then we credit the suspense account. Why suspense account? Because this transaction had affected only one side of the trial balance, and so the suspense account could very well explain why we have that difference. Could very well explain the difference. So suspense account 20,000, purchases account 20,000. We are debiting purchases account to take it back to the normal position because we had understated, and purchases is a debit account. So narrative, we just say being correction of an understated purchases account. Being correction of an understated purchases account. We had understated the purchases account by 20,000. So we like that. Good. Then we go to the third item. The third item is bank charges of 400 had been omitted entirely from the ledger. Bank charges of 400 had been omitted entirely from the ledger. So if it had been omitted entirely from the ledger, what do we do? There's an error here which could not be depicted by the, or rather disposed, will not be exposed by the trial balance. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to basically correct it, because we have already recognized that it's an error we did not include. So this is just a normal entry. We post it as a normal entry. Bank charges is an expense, so we'll debit bank charges and then credit the bank, because this money will come from the bank. So we simply come here and say bank charges, how much? 400, we debit, and then credit bank account, how much? 400, and then we simply say the narration will be being correction of an error of omission. Error of omission. We had left it out, but now we have corrected. So that's how we go about it. It's that simple. Being correction of an error of omission. So then we go like that, we finish. Then we go to the fourth one. Total telephone expenses were overstated by 28,000. Now, telephone expenses are a debit account. So it means the debit side had been overstated by 28,000. The credit side, we've been told there is no any problem. It has not been raised. We had just overstated the debit side, which is telephone, by 28,000. So what do? We reduce it by 28,000. How do we reduce the overstated telephone expenses? We simply credit that account. We credit the account by that 28,000 to reduce the overstated figure. It had been overstated by 28,000, and the overstatement is on the debit side. So if we want to correct it, we simply credit with the 28,000 and then we'll have, reverse that effect. So what we do, we come back here. The other account that is affected most likely will be the suspense account, because this is an error that is affecting only one side of the trial balance, that is the debit side only. It's not affecting the credit side. So we'll simply come here and say debit the suspense account. We don't have to write that, just say suspense account 28,000. Suspense because it only affects one side. And then we have the telephone account, which is 28,000. So we are crediting the telephone account so as to correct the overstatement, being correction of the overstated amount, overstated telephone account, correction of the overstated telephone account. So that is it. So that will be it. So we are done with this part. We close that account before we can proceed. So close the account, close that account like that, and then we proceed now with the rest. So let's continue. So continue from here. Let me see if I can draw these lines without, let me see if I can draw them well. Oh, looks like I can't. So let me just try using a ruler again. See if I get them right. Yeah, there we go. There we go. And there we go. Good. So we'll just continue with that line. Oh, our lines have disappeared. Our lines have disappeared. Our lines have disappeared. So let me just draw them. Let's see if I can get them right. Yeah, there we go. Yes, there we go. Good. This is 400. Then there we go. Good. This is 2000. And finally, sorry, these lines are misbehaving, but we'll just get them right. Good. So I think finally we have them right. Yeah, now we have them right. That's how it's supposed to be. So this is 28,000. Let's just correct. Oh, 28,000. So let's draw this line again. Hope now it's okay. So we have it right. So 28,000, 28,000 like that. And then we also need to close this. There we go, there we go. Now we have closed it. So let's proceed. We need to do away with this part here. So it's not part of the question. Okay, so we can proceed from there now that we have our house is in order. Can proceed from there. So number 5, purchase returns of 1,100 were recorded as a debit entry in the sales returns account, but the correct entry had been made in the trade payables control account. So purchase returns of 1,100 were recorded as a debit entry in the sales return account. Oh, this is terribly wrong. But the correct entry had been made the other side. So what do we do? I hope we know what purchase returns is. Purchase returns. This is the normal purchases account. Let me use this space here just to to show okay, so let me use this place here just to show purchases account. Purchases is a debit account. So purchase returns is supposed to be a credit account. Purchase returns account is supposed to be a credit account. Now, sales is a credit account. Sales is a credit account. So sales returns is supposed to be a sales returns account is supposed to be a debit account. So this is what you need to understand here. Purchases is a debit account. So purchase returns is supposed to be a credit account. Sales is a credit account. So sales returns is supposed to be a debit account. Now let's go back to the question. Purchase returns of 1,100 were recorded as a debit entry in the sales returns. So purchase returns of 1,100 was recorded as a debit entry in the sales return. Purchase returns of 1,100 is supposed to be here, but where was it recorded? It was recorded here. It's supposed to be recorded here, but it was recorded here. So what do we do to correct this? But also remember that the other side of the book was correct. But the correct entry had been made in the trade payables control account. So that means it has only affected one side of the trial balance. The other side has not been affected. So definitely it leaves us with the suspense account. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to, number one, debit the suspense account. Why are we debiting the suspense account? Because to correct this error, we have to reverse this. You can see this is erroneously here. So we are supposed to reverse with 1,100. So we will credit the sales returns account. If we credit the sales returns account, will we have corrected the error? No. We are also supposed to credit again the purchase returns account, because we are supposed to remove this from here. So this 1,100 will remove this from, will remove the 1,100 from the debit side of the sales returns. So we credit 1,100 to cancel out the effect of the debit. Then we'll not have any sales returns account. And then we post now the correct entry, which is 1,100, to the purchases returns account. This is now the correct entry. So what does that mean? That we are crediting 1,100 and we are also crediting 1,100. So how many credits are these? 2 credits. 2 credits, 2 credit accounts. So this means that we will debit the suspense account, suspense, remember the double entry concept, with how much? 2,200, and then credit the sales returns account, with how much? 1,100, and also credit the purchase returns account with 1,100. So that is what will happen. So we are crediting the sales returns account to cancel out this effect because we had erroneously debited. So we put 1,100 on the credit side to cancel out the effect. And after we cancel out the effect, we now post the correct entry, which is the credit side of the purchase returns. So that makes it 2,200 on the credit side. And because the other side of the account was okay, we simply use suspense account as the double entry. Based on the double entry concept. So the narrative will be to correct an error. Purchase return were recorded as a debit entry in the sales returns. An error. To correct an error. To correct a purchase return, to correct a purchase return entry wrongly debited to the sales returns account. To correct a purchase returns entry wrongly debited to the sales returns account. So that will be our narrative, and then we close this. We close this account like that. We close that account like that. So we have debited suspense account, credited sales returns account, credited purchase returns account, and you can see the double entry 2200, 2200. So that is it. I will again just delete this so that we can have a clean working area. Let me just delete this to have a clean working area before we can proceed. This was just our rough work. Okay. So let's proceed. The next thing is rental expenses of 10,980. Rental expense of 10,980 were entered incorrectly as 11,880 in the expense account, but were entered incorrectly as 11,880 in the expense account, but were entered correctly in the bank account in the ledger. So again, the other side we can see they were correctly entered, but here rental expense of 10,980 were entered incorrectly as 11,880 in the expense account. So this is 11,880 minus 10,980. 10,980, that gives us 900. So rental expense of 10,980 were entered incorrectly as 11,880. So this is an overstatement by 900. Overstatement by 900. So instead of entering 10,980, we entered 11,880. So we are supposed, and remember, rental expense is a debit. All expenses are debit entry. So it means we have overstated our debit side by 900. So what are we supposed to do? Simply credit 900 to cancel out the effect of that overstatement. But because it has affected only one side, then we'll have to bring in the suspense account. So we'll debit the suspense account. Suspense account only comes when we have affected one side of the book. So suspense account, 900 shillings, and then the rental account, which had been overstated on the debit side, rental expense account. It had been overstated on the debit side, so we credit it so as to cancel out the effect. So we'll say being correction of an overstated expense account, and that leaves us with being correction of an overstated expense account, like that. Being correction of an overstated. This handwriting now looks like, doesn't look good. So let me just make it a little bit better. Being correction of an understated overstated expense account. So then let's look at the next one. Credit purchases amounting to 35,000 had been omitted from the books of accounts. This is a common error of omission, so we simply factor it in. And because credit purchases, we debit purchases and we credit the creditors with 35,000. So debit purchases account with 35,000, and credit accounts payable account with 35,000. This one had been left out, so we simply say being correction of an error of omission. Being correction of an error of omission, like that, and then we close the book like that. So by doing that, we'll have done all the 7 corrections. I can see we have 7 corrections, so we've corrected all of them. So we are done with the first part, 14 marks. This should give you the 14 marks. So let's look at the second part of the question. You can see how easy it is. So the second part of the question, they want us to come up with a suspense account that is duly balanced. So a suspense account is just a T account, like any other account. So we draw up a T account and we call it suspense account with both debit and the credit side. So we'll start with the balance carried down. Balance carried down, and the balance carried down was 11,100, if I'm not wrong. 11,100. Just read it the way it is. I think we had done it here. Credit side 11,100. That is the figure that was missing for this debit and credit side to balance at 17,24,300. So 11,100. So you simply come here 11,100 like that. Then just read from the journal entries. Anywhere where we have suspense account, just read the way it is. The way we've read here, you see suspense account credit side 11,100, and we have simply come here and put 11,100 on the credit side. So it's the same thing. So the first error, when we are correcting, the first error, does it have suspense account? No. So we leave it. Second error, suspense account credit 20,000. So you simply come here. And the reason for the credit is purchases. So purchases 20,000. Sorry, this is supposed to be 20,000. So suspense is credited 20,000. The reason being purchases. So we'll simply come here and say, put here the reason, purchases account. And you can see we are crediting the suspense account with 20,000. That's what the instruction here is telling us. That credit the suspense account with 20,000. The reason being purchases. So the third item, there is no suspense account, so we leave it out. The fourth item, that we debit the suspense account with 28,000. The reason being telephone account. So we simply come here, and debit side is this side. So we say telephone account. The amount is 28,000. 28,000, like that. So 28,000. Then we come to the fifth item, suspense account debit with 2,200. The reason being sales returns and purchase returns. So we simply come here and say sales returns account 1,100, purchases returns account 1,100. This is the 2,200. That is the reason that we are supposed to debit with the suspense account. These are the reasons, so we put them like that. Then we come to the next item, suspense account 900. We debit suspense account with 900, and the reason is rental expense. So we simply come here, say rental expense. How much? 900, like that. So 900, like that. That makes it rental expense 900, debit suspense account with 900. That's what we've done. The reason is rental expense. Good. Then we go to the last item. There's no suspense account. So we are done. So once we are done, we get the figures. And now this figure should balance. If they balance, it will simply mean that now our 12 balance has balanced. We've corrected all the errors. But if it doesn't balance, it means that we still have some errors left here that we need to fix. So let's see if it will balance. This side, I can see the total here. It's straightforward. This is 31,100. And this side, this is 28,000 plus 2,200. That is 30,200 plus this, 31,100. So it is balanced. So that is the end of it. So this should give you 4. Is it the 4 marks? I think 4 or 6 marks. Let's check. Yeah, 6 marks. So this should give you 6 marks. 6 marks. So this should give you 6 marks. The upper part should give you the 14 marks. And we mark entries. So this is how you are supposed to do this question. That is the answer to that question. Thank you. Let's meet in the next session.